Hi, everybody. Welcome back to First Chapter Friday. This month, we're going to be reading a modern classic called The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And the reason I picked this one is because most middle schoolers at one time or another, they're going to find this on a required reading list. So I figured why not start early? And this way, you guys will have a leg up. Now, this first chapter is exceedingly long. So I'm actually going to read half of the first chapter because otherwise you would not watch this video. It's so long. All right, so let's get started. Again, it is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I was wishing I looked like Paul Newman. He looks tough, and I just don't. But I guess my own looks aren't so bad. I have light brown, almost red hair and greenish gray eyes. I kind of wish they were more gray, though, because I hate most guys that have green eyes. But I have to be content with what I have. My hair is longer than a lot of the boys wear theirs, and it's squared off in the back and long at the front and sides, but I'm a greaser, and most of my neighborhood rarely bothers to get a haircut. Besides, I look better with long hair. I had a long walk home and no company, but I usually loan it anyway, for no reason except that I like to watch movies undisturbed. So this way, I can get into them and live them along with the actors. When I see a movie with someone, it's kind of uncomfortable, like having someone read your book over your shoulder. I'm different that way. I mean, my second older brother, Soda, he's 16 going on 17, never cracks a book at all. And my oldest brother, Daryl, we call him Darry. He works too long and hard to be interested in a story or drawing or picture. So I'm not like them. And nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way that I do. For a while there, I thought I was the only person in the world that did, so I loaned it. Soda tries to understand at least, which is more than Darry does, but then Soda is different from anybody. He understands everything, almost. Like he's never hollering at me all the time the way Darry is, or treating me as if I'm six instead of 14. I love Soda more than I've loved anyone, even mom and dad. He's always happy go lucky and grinning, while Darry's hard and firm and he rarely grins at all. But then Darry's gone through a lot in his 20 years. He's grown up too fast. Soda Pop will never grow up at all. I don't know which is the best way, but I'll find out one of these days. Anyway, I went on walking home thinking about the movie and then suddenly wishing I had some company. Greasers can't walk alone too much or they're going to get jumped. Or someone will come by and yell, "Greaser!" at them, which really just doesn't make you feel too hot, if you know what I mean. We get jumped by the socias. I'm not really sure how to spell that, but it's the abbreviation for socials. The jet set, the West Side rich kids. It's like the term greaser, which is used to class all us boys on the east side. We are poorer than the socias and the middle class. I reckon we're wilder too. Not like the socias who jump greasers and wreck houses and throw beer blasts just for kicks and get editorials in the paper for being a public disgrace one day and an asset to society the next. Greasers are almost like hoods. We steal things and drive old souped up cars and hold up gas stations and have a gang fight just every once in a while. I don't mean I do things like that. Darry would kill me if I got into trouble with the police. Since mom and dad were killed in an auto wreck, the three of us get to stay together only as long as we behave. So, Soda and I stay out of trouble as much as we can, and we're careful not to get caught when we can. I only mean that most greasers do things like that, just like we wear our hair long and we dress in blue jeans and t-shirts, or leave our shirt tails out and wear leather jackets and tennis shoes or boots. I'm not saying that either socias or greasers are better. That's just the way things are. I could have waited to go to the movies until Derry or Soda Pop got off work. They would have gone with me, or at least driven me there, or walked along. Although Soda just can't sit still long enough to enjoy a movie, and they bore Derry to death. Derry thinks his life is enough without inspecting other people's. Or I would have gotten one of the gang to come along. One of the four boys Darian Soda and I have grown up with and we consider family. We're almost as close as brothers. When you grow up in a tight knit neighborhood like ours, you get to know each other real well. If I had thought about it, I could have called Derry and he would have come by on his way home and picked me up. Or Two Bit Matthews, one of our gang. He would have come to get me in his car if I had asked. But sometimes I just don't use my head. It drives Derry nuts when I do stuff like that because I'm supposed to be smart. I make good grades. I have a high IQ and everything, but I don't use my head. Besides, I like walking. I about decided I didn't like it so much though when I spotted that red Corvair trailing me. I was almost 2 blocks from home then, so I started walking a little faster. I had never been jumped, and I had seen Johnny after four socias got hold of him, and it wasn't pretty. Johnny was scared of his own shadow after that. Johnny was 16 then. I knew it wasn't any use though, the fast walking, I mean, even before the Corvair pulled up beside me and five socias got out. I got pretty scared. I'm kind of small for 14, even though I have a good build, and those guys were bigger than me. I automatically just hitched my thumbs in my jeans and I slouched, wondering if I could get away if I made a break for it. I remember Johnny, his face was all cut up and bruised, and I remembered how he had cried when we found him, half conscious in the corner lot. Johnny had an awful rough time at home. It took a lot to make him cry. I was sweating something fierce, although I was cold. I could feel my palms getting clammy and the perspiration running down my back. I get like that when I'm real scared. I glanced around for a pop bottle or a stick or something. Steve Randall, Soda's best buddy, had once held off four guys with a busted up pop bottle. But there was nothing. So I stood there like a bump on a log while they just surrounded me. I don't use my head. They walked around slowly, silently, smiling. Hey, Grease, one said in an overly friendly voice. We're going to do you a favor, Grease. We're going to cut all that long, greasy hair off. So he had on a Madras shirt. I can still see it. Blue Madras. One of them laughed, then cussed me out in a low voice. I didn't think of anything to say. There just isn't a whole lot you can say when you're waiting to get mugged. So I kept my mouth shut. Need a haircut, Greaser? The medium-sized blonde pulled a knife out of his back pocket and flipped open the blade. I finally thought of something to say. No, I was backing up away from that knife. Of course, I backed right into one of them. They had me down in a second. They had my arms pinned down, and one of them was sitting on my chest with his knees on my elbows. And if you don't think that hurts, you're crazy. I could smell English leather shaving lotion and stale tobacco. I wondered foolishly if I would suffocate before they did anything. I was scared so bad that I was wishing I would. I fought to get loose and almost did for a second. Then they tightened up on me and the one on my chest slugged me a couple times. So I lay there, swearing at them between gasps. The blade was held against my throat. How'd you like that haircut to begin just below your chin? It occurred to me right then that they could kill me. I went wild. I started screaming for Soda, Derry, anyone. Someone put his hand over my mouth and I bit it as hard as I could, tasting blood running through my teeth. I heard a muttered curse and got slugged again. And they were stuffing a handkerchief in my mouth. One of them kept saying, "Shut him up for Pete's sake, shut him up." Then there were a ton of shouts and the pounding of feet, and the Sosas jumped up and they left me lying in there gasping. I lay there and wondered what in the world was happening. People were jumping over me and running by me, and I was too dazed to figure it out. Then someone had me under the armpits and was hauling me to my feet. Oh, it was Derry. Are you all right, Ponyboy? He was shaking me, and I wish he'd stop. I was dizzy enough anyway. I could tell it was Derry, though, partly because of the voice, and partly because Derry's always rough with me without meaning to be. I'm okay. Just quit shaking me, Derry. I'm okay. He stopped instantly. Oh, I'm sorry. He really wasn't. Derry isn't ever sorry for anything that he does. It seems funny to me that he should look exactly like my father and act exactly the opposite of him. My father was only 40 when he died, and he looked 25. And a lot of people thought Derry and Dad were brothers instead of father and son. But they only looked alike. My father was never rough with anyone without meaning to be. Derry is 6 feet 2 and broad shouldered and muscular. He has dark brown hair that kicks out in the front and a slight cowlick in the back, just like Dad's. But Derry's eyes, they're his own. He's got eyes that are like two pieces of pale green ice that they've got a determined set to them, just like the rest of him. He looks older than 20. Tough, cool, smart. He would be really handsome if his eyes weren't so cold. He doesn't understand that it's not a or he doesn't understand anything that is not a plain hard fact, but he uses his head. I sat down again, rubbing my cheek where I'd been slugged the most. Derry jammed his fists in his pockets. They didn't hurt you too bad, did they? They did. I was smarting and aching, and my chest was sore, and I was so nervous. My hands were shaking, and I wanted to start bawling. But you just don't do that with Derry. I'm okay. Soda Pop came loping back. By then, I had figured out that the noise that I had heard, that was the gang coming to rescue me. He dropped down beside me, examining my head. "Ooh, you got cut up a little bit, Ponyboy, huh?" I only looked at him blankly. I did? He pulled out a handkerchief. He wet the end of it with his tongue and pressed it gently against the side of my head. "You are bleeding like a stuck pig." "I am? Look." He showed me the handkerchief, reddened as if by magic. "Did they pull a blade on you?" I remembered the voice, "Need a haircut, Greaser." The blade must have slipped while he was trying to shut me up. Yeah, Soda is handsomer than anyone that I know. Not like Derry. Soda's movie star kind of handsome. The kind that people stop on the street to watch go by. He's not as tall as Derry, and he's a little slimmer, but he has a finely drawn, sensitive face that somehow manages to be reckless and thoughtful at the same time. He's got dark gold hair that he combs back long and silky and straight, and in the summer the sun bleaches it to a shining wheat gold. His eyes are dark brown, lively, dancing, reckless, laughing eyes that they can be gentle and sympathetic one moment and blazing with anger the next. He has Dad's eyes, but Soda is one of a kind. He can get drunk in a drag race or dancing without ever getting near alcohol. In our neighborhood, it's rare to find a kid who doesn't drink once in a while. But Soda never touches a drop. He doesn't need to. He gets drunk on just plain living. He understands everybody. He looked at me close. He looked at me more closely. I looked away hurriedly because I don't want to know the truth. I was starting to bawl. I knew I was as white as I felt, and I was shaking like a leaf. Soda just put his hand on my shoulder. "Easy, Ponyboy. They ain't gonna hurt you no more." "I know," I said, but the ground began to blur and I felt hot tears running down my cheeks. I brushed them away impatiently. "I'm just a little spooked, that's all." I drew a quivering breath and quit crying. You just don't cry in front of Derry. Not unless you're hurt like Johnny had been that day we found him in the vacant lot. Compared to Johnny, I wasn't hurt at all. Soda rubbed my hair. "You're an okay kid, Pony." I had to grin at him. Soda can make you grin no matter what. I guess it's because he's always grinning so much himself. You're crazy, Soda. You're out of your mind. Darry looked as if he would like to knock our heads together. You're both nuts. Soda merely cocked one eyebrow, a trick he picked up from Two-Bit. It seems to run in the family. Darry stared at him for a second, then cracked a grin. Soda Pop isn't afraid of him like everyone else, and he enjoys teasing him. I would just as soon as tease a full-size grizzly. For some reason, Darry seems to like being teased by Soda. Our gang had chased the Socias to their car and heaved rocks at them. They came running toward us now, four lean, hard guys. They were all tough as nails and looked it. I'd grown up with them and they accepted me. And though I was younger, because I was Darry and Soda's kid brother, I kept my mouth shut good. Steve Randall was 17, tall and lean, with thick, greasy hair, and he combed it in complicated swirls. He was cocky, smart, and Soda's best buddy since grade school. Steve's specialty was cars. He could lift a hubcap quicker and more quietly than anyone in the neighborhood. And he also knew cars upside down and backwards, and he could drive anything on wheels. He and Soda worked at the same gas station. Steve part-time, Soda full-time, and their station got more customers than any other in town. Whether that was because Steve was so good with cars or because Soda attracted girls like honey draws flies, I couldn't tell you. I liked Steve only because he was Soda's best friend. He didn't like me, though. He thought I was a tag along and a kid. Soda always took me with them when they went places, when they weren't taking girls. And that bugged Steve. It wasn't my fault. Soda always asked me. I didn't ask him. Soda doesn't think I'm a kid. Two-Bit Matthews was the oldest of the gang and the wisecracker of the bunch. He was about 6 feet tall, stocky in build, and very proud of his long, rust-colored sideburns. He had gray eyes and a wide grin, and he couldn't stop making funny remarks to save his life. You couldn't shut up that guy. He always had to get in his 2 bits worth, hence the nickname. Even his teachers forgot that his real name was Keith. We hardly remembered that he had one. Life was one big joke to Two-Bit. He was famous for shoplifting and his black-handled switchblade, which he couldn't have acquired without the first talent. He was always smarting off to the cops. He really couldn't help it. Everything he said was so irresistibly funny that he just had to let the police in on it to brighten up their day. That's the way he explained it to me. He liked fights, blondes, and for some unfathomable reason, school. He was still a junior at 18 and a half, and he never learned anything. He just went for kicks. Um, I liked him real well because he kept laughing at ourselves, or because he kept us laughing at ourselves as well as at other things. He reminded me of Will Rogers. Maybe it was the grin. If I had to pick the real character of the gang, it would be Dallas Winston. Dally. I used to like to draw his picture when he was in a dangerous mood, for then I could get his personality down in a few lines. He had an elfish face and high cheekbones and a pointed chin, small, sharp animal teeth, and ears like a lynx. His hair was almost white, it was so blonde. He didn't like haircuts or hair oil either. So it fell over his forehead in wisps, and it kicked out in the back in tufts and curled behind his ears, and along the nape of his neck. His eyes were blue, blazing ice, cold with a hatred of the whole world. Dally spent 3 years on the wild side of New York and had been arrested at the age of 10. He was tougher than the rest of us. Tougher, colder, meaner. The shade of difference that separates a greaser from a hood wasn't present in Dally. He was as wild as the boys in the downtown outfits, like Tim Shepard's gang. In New York, Dally blew off steam in gang fights, but here, organized gangs, they're a rarity. There are just small bunches of friends who stick together, and the warfare is between the social classes. A rumble, when it's called, is usually born of a grudge fight, and the opponents just happen to bring their friends along. Oh, there are a few named gangs around, like the River Kings and the Tiber Street Tigers, but here in the Southwest, there's no gang rivalry. So Dally, even though he could get into a good fight sometimes, he had nothing specific to hate. No rival gang, only socias. And you can't win against them, no matter how hard you try, because they get all the breaks. And even whipping them isn't going to change that fact. Maybe that's why Dallas was so bitter. He did have quite a reputation. They had a file on him down at the police station. He'd been arrested. He got drunk. He rode in rodeos, lied, cheated, stole, rolled drunks, jumped small kids. He did everything. I didn't like him, but he was smart and you had to respect him. Johnny Cade was last and least. If you can picture a little dark puppy that has been kicked too many times and is lost in a crowd of strangers, you have Johnny. He was the youngest next to me, smaller than the rest, with a slight build. He had big black eyes and a dark tanned face. His hair was jet black and heavily greased and combed to the side, but it was so long that it fell in shaggy bangs across his forehead. He had a nervous, suspicious look in his eyes. And that beating that he got from the Socias, that didn't help matters. He was the gang's pet, everyone's kid brother. His father was always beating him up and his mother just ignored him, except when she hacked off at something, and then you could hear her yelling clear down at our house. I think he hated that worse than getting whipped. He would have run away a million times if we hadn't been there. If it hadn't been for the gang, Johnny would never have known what love and affection are. I wiped my eyes hurriedly. Did you catch them? Nope. They got away this time. The dirty two-bit went on cheerfully calling the Socias every name he could possibly think of or make up. The kid's okay? I'm okay. I tried to think of something to say. I'm usually pretty quiet around people, even the gang. I changed the subject. I didn't know you were out of the cooler yet, Dally. Good behavior. Got off early. Dallas lit a cigarette and handed it to Johnny. Everyone sat down to have a smoke and relax. A smoke always lessens the tension. I had to quit trembling, and my color was back. The cigarette was calming me down. Two-Bit cocked an eyebrow. Nice looking bruise you got there, kid. I touched my cheek gingerly. Oh, really? Two-Bit nodded sagely. Nice cut, too. Makes you look tough. Now, tough and tough are two different words. TOUGH is the same as rough. TUFF means cool, sharp, like a tough looking Mustang or a tough record. In our neighborhood, both are compliments. Steve flicked his ashes at me. What were you doing walking by your lonesome? Leave it to good old Steve to bring up something like that. I was coming home from the movies. I didn't think. You never think, Darry broke in. Not at home, not or anywhere that it counts. You must think at school with all those good grades you bring home, and you've always got your nose in a book. But do you ever use your head for common sense? No, sorry, bub. And if you did have to go by yourself, you should have carried a blade. And that is half ish of the first chapter of The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Now, we do have this one in book form. We also have it electronically, and there is a movie, which I personally feel is just as good as the book. So, anyway, thank you for hanging with me this month, and I will see you next time. All right? Bye.